Hello everyone, I'm Rohini from Nehru Arts and Science College. In this video lecture, we see Vasthukala, the science of architecture in ancient India, temples in India, marvelous stone architecture for eternity. Yes, Vasthukala as the first title. Vasthukala is all about buildings. It is to gather information or to gain knowledge by doing some experiments or by observation. That is why it is called the science of built environment. Then, in the next title, The Science of Architecture in Ancient India, we are going to talk about architectural buildings, how it got aligned with scientific principles. Here, not only scientific principles, spiritual is there, philosophical concepts are there. Okay, then in the next title, the third title, we are going to talk about temples in India. In the temples in India, we can see the temples with geometrical square diagrams. This is called as mandalas. It has symbolic mathematical structure of the universe. Okay, and in the last title, The Marvelous Stone Architecture for Eternity, here we see the working of the stone, how Indians are getting the skill to work on the stone, particularly the monolithic stone. Mono means single, lithic means stone. How Indians are getting this talent in making this single stone carving work. Okay, what is this eternity as the title says? Eternity is a period of time that never ends. It this kind of a building which go for a long period. We can say these ancient buildings still survive. Some are not survived because the materials which was used was a temporary based. But certain buildings are still surviving from the ancient time. That is because of the permanent materials they take to build. Okay, so now let's dwell into Vasthukala. Vasthukala is a Sanskrit word. In English, Vasthukala means architecture. This word Vasthukala deeply rooted in ancient Indian philosophy. When we split this word Vasthukala as Vastu and Kala, Vastu means dwelling, Kala means art. This Vastukala refers to the art, science, and technique of designing and constructing the buildings. The word Vastukala itself now harmonizes the spaces with nature, cosmic energies, and human well being. When it aligns with structure, we can see five elements. One is earth, water, fire, air, and space. It has its cosmic directions. Even now in the present generation, we see Vastukala is getting present. We apply to construct homes. Our homes, our temples, palaces, and our modern buildings are constructed with this Vastukala method only. This Vastukala influencing the layouts, and it has its orientation and design in that.
Next to Vastukala, we see the science of architecture in ancient India. In order to study the science of architecture, first we must know the archaeology. It is an idea of the material life of people. Here, the radiocarbon is the most important method and one of the methods to fix the dates. Radiocarbon or carbon 14C. This radioactive carbon, which is present in all living objects, but when it decays, if a material gets decays, this radioactive carbon remain as a radioactive substance at a uniform rate. That means when an object is living, the process of the decay of 14C is neutralized. by the absorption of 14C through air and food. So, however, when an object ceases to be alive, 14C content continues to decay at a uniform rate, but ceases to absorb 14C from air or food. So, by measuring the loss of the 14C content in an ancient object, the age is determined. This is because, as stated earlier, the decay of 14C takes place at a uniform rate. So,
Radiocarbon method, we get a decipherable writing. This decipherable writing gives solid evidence. Then only we can understand how the history was constructed. So from one time to the next. This kind of a decipherable writing started in the 3rd century BC with the Asokan inscription. So from there we get the solid evidences, and with that we can understand there were already 3 different major traditions helped to have a great architecture in India. One is Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islamism. Now, before that, there was architecture called vernacular architecture, which is found in very remote regions, completely made of local materials only. So, these kind of understanding comes from the 3rd century BC through the decipherable writing. This slide you can see the timber and the thatch. With the help of the timber and the thatch, how the buildings was constructed with the help of this local materials. For that, they don't want to go anywhere. Instead, from the trees, they can cut the branches and they can use the construction. So this kind of building influenced the Buddhism as well. Okay, the early Buddhist structures used this carved reliefs only. They painted the decorations and machinery inspired by bamboo and thatch models. So in such a way, from the vernacular, the other traditions, first Buddhism, then Hinduism and Islam started up.
so in vernacular architecture, we can see some examples. There is bamboo and thatch huts can be seen in West Bengal, Odisha, and Bangladesh, and we can see generally mud walls um, is seen in everywhere in India, and we can also learn that indigenous woodwork with high rainfall regions we can see in Nepal and Sri Lanka. Then also we can see this vernacular architecture in Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Kerala. And also we can see in Gujarat, Rajasthan and the Pakistan regions. Only a small amount of Indian architecture remains. First we can see this Rajagriha nestled in Bihar. It is a Harappan brick building which is strong and little artistic value. This Rajagriha, which nestled in Bihar, we can't see any artistic values, but we can see there is an urban planning and we can see the strategies, defensive strategies. So the fort's strong stone and mud walls provided robustness against assaults, demonstrating a deep understanding of defensive construction techniques. We can't see stonework here, because there were many local items available like wood. So then when Mauryan craftswork in stonework, when they were getting influenced from Persia and little from Greece, they still distinctively followed in Indian style. Now you see the Kunu quarry near Varanasi, which is made from stone. It is believed that during the Mauryan Emperor Asokan period, it, the Buddhist council third council was convened in this place. This Kunur stone in the Kunur area of the Mirzapur district of Varanasi, that is near Varanasi, this Kunur stone is carvable and the durability is used to build structures. So some Mauryan columns at Patna supported a palace roofs. It is a 80-pillar assembly hall, featured 80 sandstone pillars, supported wooden roof and floors. Here we can see the materials like sandstone and wood were transported via a Son Ganga river. That route was shown in this map, showcasing advanced planning and resource management during this Mauryan period. Stupas. Stupas during the Buddhist period. Here, this stupa is simply the earthen burial mound. It is used to honor the dead and was respected by local people. Here, the Emperor Asoka built many stupas all over India to enshrine the relics of the Buddha. A lot of wealth and energy went into Buddhist architecture. Stupas are of great symbol of religion. There are three major stupas to be mentioned. One is Bharhat, Sanchi, and the last Amaravati. Here in this we see a domed hemispherical structure, stupa. Stupa is a Sanskrit word, heap. Here, this ancient stupa in Nepal proved its construction to be around 600 AD. It is one of the most important tourist sites in the Kathmandu Valley. The early stupas had a large hemispherical dome and small central chamber inside it, and a wooden or stone umbrella on top. The wooden fence surrounding it enclosed a path for pradakshina, that is a ritual clockwise circumambulations. It was the chief form of reverence paid to the relics within it. Next to stupa, this is Tornas. At the end of the first century BC, four beautifully carved Tornas were added at the four directions: east, west, north, south. These gateways are considered the most remarkable feature of the Sanchi stupa. These tornas covered with exquisite sculpture from top to bottom. The final form of stupa of Amaravati was completed around AD 200. So when we talk about stupa, the tornas also present in four directions like east, west, north, and south. And this stupas, Amaravati stupa, is larger than Sanchi stupa. Over the centuries, many stupas were built, and in North India, the stupas were built on square platforms. Today, it is hard to find the early stupas. These stupas' design influenced the modern temples of Burma and Thailand. There are two famous Indian stupas. One is the Sarnath and another one is in Nalanda. So these stupas uh, were smaller stupas also constructed later to keep the ancestors of the monks who were given respect. Monasteries are for monks to live and study was later added. There were also shrine rooms, preaching halls, and rest houses for pilgrims also can be seen in the stupa around the stupa. Then the Indian pillars. Indian pillars during the Mauryan period, we can see a remarkable monolithic columns that stand erect during the reign of the Mauryan emperors, especially Asoka the Great. Here we can see a series of monolithic columns dispersed throughout the Indian subcontinent. We can see these pillars made of a single piece of stone showcase intricate artistry and architectural fitness. It serves both functional as well as symbolic purpose. There are different types of pillars, capitals. We can see next to Mauryan capital, we can see Sanchi capital. It belongs to the 2nd and 1st century BCE. It is more decorative than Mauryans. Here uh, we also see Bezanaga pillar. This inscription was made by Heliodorus. Here, the beautiful story is the Indo-Greek ruler Anticetus sent his ambassador Heliodorus to the court of Sunga ruler. So the Heliodorus constructed a pillar at Vasudeva in honor of the god Krishna. Here, the pillar is also known as Garudatvaja or Bezanaka pillar inscription. This Bezanaka pillar, the capital, has a Hellenistic influence. It is more geometric in decoration, as we see. And in the list of Indian pillars, the most remarkable during the Mauryan capital is the Asokan pillar. In this pillar, we can see lion-like animal figure. And in Saranath, Asokan pillar capital is seen. And here we can see the famous four lions, and it is beautifully carved abacus with wheels and animals. Again, in Udayagiri pillar, it commonly referred to the iron pillar belongs to the 4th and 5th century. It belongs to the Gupta era. Here we can notice it is made of pure iron composition and rust resistance. It is originally erected in honor of King Chandragupta II and god Vishnu. Now, before going to the next slides and understanding about the Indian architecture, now let's have a small recap. So far, in this the science of architecture in ancient India, we were talking about the 14C, that is radiocarbon. This radiocarbon helps to locate the dates and the decipherable writing, which starts from the 3rd century BCE, also helpful to understand the ancient what happened on the ancient period. Then we know that the architecture in India got its shape from three major traditions. One is Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islamism. Before these three traditions, there was already a vernacular architecture. These architectural values developed with the help of the local materials. For example, we have seen in Bihar, Rajagriha, which is nestled to the structure is only for the defense, not for the any ornamental or design purpose or nothing like that. So then Kunukwari in Varanasi, we can see that is near Varanasi, this Kunur stones. It is easy to carve. So slowly, how no this aesthetic sense, the design work and all started. Here in the Buddhist period, stupas and what we see as stupas, the local people who honor the dead people. So seeing that how that tradition came into the Buddhist tradition and these stupas and following that stupas, there were four toranas, east, west, north, south, how it was placed, and at last what we were talking about the Indian pillars. So so far, I I hope you all clear with this, and now we are going to see this Ellora temple. It is time to see the Ajanta caves and Ellora caves. Ajanta cave is from Maharashtra, Western Maharashtra, and this Ellora cave is Aurangabad. These both caves are very important to notice. When we talk about Ajanta caves from Western Maharashtra, we can see it was built around a harsh shoe shaped cliff. It contains 27 caves, 100 feet deep, and you can see monastery stays there for their stay and study. It is famous extraordinary sculptures with magnificent paintings. You can see this in this Ajanta caves. Then comes Ellora caves. It is near Aurangabad. Here you can see 34 caves, and it belongs to the 5th and 8th century AD. When we talk about the Ellora cave at Ellora, this Kailasanatha temple is very important. This is a spectacular monument in the Indian artwork. Here, this is not actually a cave. This Rashtrakuta king, the King Krishna, who carved the whole hill from the top to the downwards, removing an entire rocky hillside. That means there is no need for getting any material from the outside. The whole cave is designed. It is easier than building with the masonry. Okay, the features of this Kailasanatha temple includes shrine rooms, halls, gateways, smaller shrines, cloisters, and countless carved divine figures are, and scenes are seen in this Kailasanatha temple, which is at Ellora. What we see, this Kailasanatha temple is not the earliest temple. It is not only hewn from the solid rock in at Mamallapuram, which is 50 miles away from south of Madras. Here, this particular temple is not very large in size, and this was patterned by the Pallava king during the 7th century period. The most famous of these Mahabalipuram, we can say, there you can see 7 pagodas still show the influence of wood construction and of our distinctive styles, possibly looking back to Dravidian prototypes. We can see the cave temples, and you can see the tradition of the in Tamil Dravidian architectures. Here, the scholars also believe that it is prior to the 7th century. It is not what we see now with the style. It is already built before the 7th century. It was made of woods, they say. We are seeing the Ajanta cave, Ellora caves, and Mamallapuram caves. It is time to talk about South India. This South India is completely independent from the North India. That was till the late 13th century. And we can see there was a change after that. Delhi Sultanate began expanding into the south between 1296 to 1323. Here, the Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq shifted the capital from Delhi to Devagiri and named Devagiri as Daulatabad in Maharashtra. It happened in 1326 to 1336. Here, Tughlaq dynasty influenced architecture in South India after their conquest. Here, the Islamic religious architecture it can be seen in South India by building mosque and the Sufi lodges and the Islamic schools. Now, in South India, we can see there are states getting encompassed like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana. To the 13th century, it was only during the late 15th and 16th century the Vijayanagara rulers built huge temple complexes. First, we see Krishna temple in Karnataka. Then we can see Varadaraja Perumal temple in Kanchipuram, and we see Sita Ramachandra Swami temple at Bhadrachalam, Telangana in India. This temple is dedicated to Lord Rama. There are other temples dedicated to Ramachandra in Kumbakonam is the best example. And this temple structures are associated with the history of Vijayanagara. The temple show a grand imperial style. We can see the carved pillars and mandabas are very large, and we can see the gopuras that is tall and elaborate sculptures also can be seen during the Vijayanagara period temple architectures. With the fall of the Vijayanagara Empire, there comes the Nayakas. These Nayakas were powerful rulers in Tamil Nadu. Many new kingdoms arose in South India, also influenced the regional art and architecture. This artwork in Tamil Nadu and Kerala in southern side developed independently. These Nayaka rulers ruled Senji, Velu, Tanjavur and Madurai. We can see large temples built by Nayakas. These temples are decorated with stone and bronze sculptures. We can see the wall paintings, ivory work, textiles, and metal crafts. Even during the Nayakan periods, this Vijayanagaram architecture seems to be surviving, and we can see the temples with Gopuram, the tower, and we can see the stone pillars carved neatly, richly carved, and we can see the wooden gates, which was very large, and it most stunning thing is the monolithics, the sculptures, and which was all made during the Vijayanagaram period gets to survive. And we can see there is a similarity in Soundaraja Perumal temple at Nagapattinam, which is 90 feet tall. Similarly, the temple's height is most noticeable. Here, Krishnapuram Venkatachalapati temple, which is 110 feet height, and Sri Villuputturu Andal temple, 192 feet height, and Alagar Kovil. This Alagar Kovil, in Tamil, we can say the Malay as hill, and this from the bottom of the hill to the height of the temple, we can see it is totally 873 feet high. The temple also has a mandapam, and there was a hall, and there were stone pillars which was neatly carved. We can see the dragons, horses, and Yanai Ali and Kudurayali. Kudurayali is a horse yali. So these kind of an artwork we can see, which was still surviving, and telling about the Vijayanagaram architecture. Next to the Vijayanagara architecture, we can see this Nayakas, they gave importance to the strong fortresses because security was the major concern to them. There were two strong fortresses, one is a Velur fort and Senji fort. These forts dates back mainly to the 16th century. These forts were built on granites with the on the slopey side called bastions, bastions. These bastions is a rounded defense towers, and we see crenellations. It is to shoot arrows or guns, and also we see moats, that is deep water filled trenches. During the Nayaka period, we also see in the Velur fort the temple of Vijayanagara period stands still. Now it is under the control of the Archaeological Survey of India. Likewise, these Velur fort and Senji fort are important to notice and to mark with the Nayaka dynasty. And this Senji fort is 1.5 kilometer from north to south. It is a large triangular zone, and there are several walls connecting tiny hill forts, small temples, building inside, and a unique building with open verandas and a towered audience hall. The only a few structures survive today, the towered hall and the audience chamber. So in this way, now we can have a end to this the science of architecture in ancient India. So let us have a small recap. First, we were talking about 14C undecipherable writing, which all tells about the dates of the ancient India and about the story and some idea about the ancient Indian architectures. Then we were talking about vernacular architecture with the example of the Rajagriha, which is nestled in Bihar, and the Kunukwari, which is near Varanasi. And these vernacular architecture tells about the local materials were used to build the architecture. Then slowly transportation started during the Varanasi time when they were using the Kunur stones because that was easy to carve. And we also have seen there were three major traditions which shaped the Indian architecture in India. So that is Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islamism. And we see with these examples like stupas, then toranas, Indian pillars, caves, and temples. Then we were talking about in India, there is northern side and the southern side, and they were distinct. When the Delhi Sultanate began expanding, the North Indian architecture, the Sultan period idea came and influenced the southern side as well. And after that, which after the 13th century, only in the late 15th and 16th century, we come to see the Vijayanagaram architecture, and we were talking about the tallness of the temples. Then, for the security reasons, later the Nayaka rulers, when their period starts, they started building the forts. So, in this way, the science of architecture in ancient India come to an end. Now we are going to talk about the temples in India. So far, based on the title, we have completed Vasthukala. Then we have completed the science of architecture in ancient India. Now it is time to start temples in India. It is an art, visual culture one can view and understand. In Sanskrit, it is termed as Lalit Kala. It is widely used today to denote art. This art means an object that is admired aesthetically. It is installed in the place of worship. It shows the intrinsic power. In modern times, this is equally determined by the marketplace. And we can see the commercial value and the aesthetic value is in the temples, and that is for the security and the sanctity. This kind of a temple architecture started its development gradually. First, it started for the worship purpose. So, Buddhist temple at Satyagraha, which is located a mile southwest of the city, Viratnagar in Rajasthan, still says that how the beginning temple architecture was. So, in such a way, we are also going to see the Sun Temple, which dates back to 8th century. This particular Sun Temple is dedicated to Surya. Surya means the sun. It is 5 miles from Anantnag in the heavenly state of Jammu and Kashmir in India. The structure is a Kashmiri Hindu temple and is known as one of the most elegant structures which is ever built in India. Even in a wrecked state, if you go genuinely to listen the story, it gives you stories and the temple shares its stories. This temple architecture, the rules and regulations are all collected and kept in a textbook, and that is called Silpa Sutra. Hindu temple architecture developed only after the Gupta period, especially during the medieval period. It is the age of faith. Many new temples were built, replacing older wooden or brick structures. So when the wood goes old and it is not good, it was replaced. Likewise, bricks also replaced. Kings and chiefs competed by building impressive temples. So there was a heavy competition in building Hindu temples. The standard Hindu temple has persisted from the 6th century. Its structure has her uniqueness. Temple we can see Garbhagriha, Mandapa, Shikhara, Amalaka. Garbhagriha is a very important. It is the heart of the temple. It is very small, dark shrine room that contains the chief icon. Ardha Mandapa porch was the approach to the main hall. So here we have Mandapa. Worshippers stand here and worship. Garbhagriha. No one is allowed. Normal people can't get into this. And they worship from the mandapa. It is a separate building but was usually joined to the sanctum. In short, it is a hall of worshippers, we can say. Then comes the Sikara. The Sikara, the shrine room, was generally surmounted by a tower with a smaller towers often rising from other parts of the building. So then we can see in the tower there was a neck covered by a ribbed round stone that is called Amalaka. So in such a way you can also see in the temple the courtyard. The whole structure was set in a rectangular courtyard which which might contain lesser shrines and was often placed on a raised platform with a covered walls. And here, this temple architecture developed across different regions, mainly focusing on northern and southern styles. So, this northern style is called as a Indo-Aryan style, and the southern style is called as a Dravidian style. We call it as Vastu Sastra, is a body of theoretical text dates back to the 7th to 8th century. It regulates the formal aspects of the temple, including proportional relationships. These texts distinguish between the main style. We call it as Nagara mode, northern India, sometimes called Latina, and another style is Dravidian style, southern India. Among the Dravida mode and the Nagara mode, we say the Nagara mode in northern India, sometimes called Latina, the tower or Sikara, called mountain peak. The yearly Sikara had a gently carved profile crowned with a ribbed motif called as Amalaka. Konark Sun Temple at Odisha is the best example eh, taken here to tell that it belongs to 13th century, is colossal and is raised on a high terrace carved with 12 wheels symbolizing the year. And the National Service Scheme in India knows this Konak Sun Temple, which is in Odisha state on the Bay of Bengal coast. It is a famous for its 13th century temple, the Surya Dual, once the largest and the tallest temple in India, sometimes called Black Pagoda, from its oxidized iron bearing stone. The temple was used as a navigation landmark by mariners sailing to Calcutta. Konark Sun Temple was dedicated to the sun god Surya. It has 12 huge carved stone wheels, 7 stone horses around its base. The exterior is covered with sculptured decorations, some erotic depicting erotic scenes. In front of the temple is a tall stone pillar bearing an image of Aruna, Surya's charioteer. Beyond that, there are the remains of the structure known as a Bhugamandapa that is raised on a tall plinth. Although the temple is uninscribed, we can have a reference from the text and copper plate inscriptions and palm leaf manuscripts. It all says that it was constructed by the Ganga dynasty king Narasimhadeva, reigned in 1238 to 64 of the Ganga dynasty. Next to the Konak Sun Temple, which is the example for the Nagara mode. Now we see Meenakshi Sundareswara Temple from Madurai as a best example for the Dravidian mode of architecture. Here we can see there are religious sentiments from the people's side. They largely concentrate on the temples. We can see their hearts are filled with superhuman exaltation. This Meenakshi Sundareswara Temple, which is in Madurai city, is in Tamil Nadu state. This architectural building, is surrounded by a covered gallery with carved pillars and steps that lead to the water. The walls of this covered gallery bear paintings and are engraved with the compositions by Tamil poets. Several of these paintings, some of which depicts miraculous deeds performed by Siva at Madurai, are now preserved in the Temple Art Museum. The temple includes 2 similar design shrines, one dedicated to Meenakshi on the western side of the pool and another one dedicated to Sundareswara, Meenakshi's husband on the north. These shrines are surrounded by double corridors and their sanctum are protected by door guardians. Paintings depicts Meenakshi wedding coronation and rules, Shiva's miracle and other deities adorn the walls and ceiling. The sanctum of the Meenakshi temple houses a standing green stone image of Meenakshi. Meenakshi Sundareswara temple, the most interesting to see is the temple complex. In Tamil, we say it as Airankal Mandapam, in English, Hall of Thousand Pillars. There was a central aisle and a double row of columns on either side leading to the shrine of Sabhabati Shiva. Each of the pillars is unique in form and carved with reliefs. There was a short distance from the temple in the southeast is the palace of Tirumala Nayaka, belonged to 1623 to 1659. It was designed and part by an Italian architecture in 1636 and it was remodeled again in 1822. Among the surviving structures, the most impressive is the octagonal throne room, Swarga Vilasam, which is surrounded by arcades and topped by carved dome. No account of art of South India in these centuries would be complete without the notice of the art of Kerala. Vadakanatha temple at Thrissur in Kerala. This temple stands in a walled compound and consists of a square, circular, or even elliptical shrine of masonry with, with an open Namaskara Mandapa in front. Two or more shrines of different shapes and sometimes combined in a single complex, as in Vadakanatha temple at Thrissur, where they are dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu, and Rama. We can see the gabled roof that crown Kerala structures are carried on timber columns and beams, often carved with exquisite reliefs showing Ramayana and Mahabharata narratives. Wooden ceilings are divided into small squares occupied by Hindu divinities. Wooden brackets angling outwards from the shrine roofs to support the sloping overhang of the tiled roofs are fashioned into three dimensions as gods and attendant figures, including Shiva disguised as a hunter, human hunter, and the hero Arjuna, illustrating the Kiratarjunya legend. Here we can come to the final stage of temples in India. So far, we were talking about the earliest known freestanding religious building, which was in a round hall, which is near Jaipur at Bihar. We can see this earliest architecture temple structures, and during the 8th century, how this Sun Temple, even in a wrecked state, now it is telling the stories to the believers. Okay, and also we were seeing that only after the Gupta period, the Hindu temple architecture started its development. And also we were talking about the Silpa Sutra. Silpa Sutra is the textbook. We can see the rules of the temple architecture. This rules of the temple architecture, which collected in the textbook, is called Silpa Sutra. Then we have seen the standard Hindu temples that has persisted from the 6th century. Here we can understand the parts of the temple, mainly the Garbhagriha, which is very important, and Ardha Mandapa, Mandapa, Sikhara, Amalaka, Pradakshinapada, and Courtyard tells the structure of the Hindu temple. In such a way, the Indian temple architecture can be divided into two types. One is a Nagara mode and a Dravidian mode. So what we have seen is Konark Sun Temple from the Nagara mode as an example, and Sri Meenakshi Sundareswara Temple as from the Dravidian mode. As well, when we end this temples in India session, we also touched this Vadakanatha temple at Thrissur, Kerala. So with this, we can come to the conclusion of what we have seen so far. So Vasthukala and the science of architecture in ancient India. Now what we have seen is temples in India. All says that for the harmonious living, how people have seen the buildings and the temples. Now it's time to talk about the marble stone architecture for eternity. Here, the stone carving in India is one of the richest traditions in the world. Guilds of masons and stone carvers have existed here since the 7th century BC. The skills were handed down as family lore from father to the son, a practice prevalent in some parts of the country even today. The people of the Neolithic age used tools and implements of polished stone. They particularly used stone axes, which have been found in large numbers in a substantial part of hilly tracts of India. The stone axe was put to various uses by the people, and ancient legends represent Parasurama as an important axe wielding hero. We see the marble stone architecture, it is for eternity. Eternity is a concept representing infinite times without beginning or end. It describes a state of timelessness. Here we talk about the past, present, and future by seeing the stones. Epigraphy, the study of written matter recorded on hard and durable materials. In India as a whole, the earliest inscriptions were recorded on the stone. However, in the early centuries of the Christian era, copperplate began to be used for this purpose. Even then, the practice of engraving inscription on stone continued on a large scale in South India. We have a large number of inscriptions recorded on the walls of temple to serve as a permanent record. Here, the Indian art was created for religious purpose as well. It is full of real and connected to everyday life. Indian kings had grand palaces with wall paintings. The art shows energy, movement, busy Indian cities, and lively forest. In the Indian art, figures are shown rounded, healthy, and often smiling. Almost the gods and humans look young and beautiful. To give a final touch to the stone architecture for eternity, we come with an example. Even the great Jain statue Gomateswara stands calmly and smiling. Looks like an ordinary healthy young man, shown in deep meditation. This Gomateswara statue is in Karnataka, India. It is 57-foot monolithic sculpture dedicated to the Jain figure Bahubali. Yes, it is also known as Bahubali statue. It was completed in 981 CE and it is considered as one of the largest monolithic statues in the world. It symbolizes the Jain precepts of peace, non-violence, sacrifice of worldly affairs, and simple living. Yes, so far we have completed Vasthukala, the science of architecture in ancient India, temples in India, and marvelous stone architecture for eternity. That's all in this video lecture. Now it's time to take a small test. Now it's time those who have listened this video lecture from the beginning can take this small test. Just to pass this video and read the five first fill in the blanks and you can answer and you can see totally 10 questions and in the first slide we see 5 questions. After answering you can go to the next slide and find the answers. Similarly for 10 questions you can get the answers in the next slides. Now you can pause the video. Let me read the answers to you. The purpose of Vasthukala is to create harmonious living spaces that supports well-being, balance and positive energy. And in the second question, when an object ceases to be alive, its radiocarbon content continues to decay at a uniform rate, but ceases to absorb 14C from air and food. Then the third question, decipherable writing was known in India only in the 3rd century BC. In the fourth question, Emperor Asoka built many stupas all over India to enshrine the relics of the Buddha. Stupas are of great symbol of religion. And in the fifth, the Amravati Stupa is larger than Sanchi Stupa. Now we can have the next five questions. Here again, you can pause this video, answer this 6 to 10 questions, and you can go for the next line to find the answers. Let me read the answers. Kailasanatha temple at Ellora is carved from the top of the hill downwards, removing an entire rocky hillside. The cave temples of Mahabalipuram dates back to the tradition of Tamil Dravidian architecture. Medieval India was an age of faith. Garbhagriha is the heart of the temple. It is a small, dark shrine room that contains the chief icon. Eternity is the concept representing infinite time. Now you can see the reference session. Here you can see there are so many books and link attached here. You can use this for your further study. So far we were talking about Vasthukala, the science of architecture in ancient India, temples in India, marble stone architecture for eternity. I hope you had a valuable learning from this video lecture. I hope we can see in the next video too. Until then, bye bye from Rohini. Thanks for watching.